this is another episode in the devlog series I'm doing on Papyrus 3D, which is a side project I'm working on to create a game engine / framework for creating adventure games with A-Frame, the WebXR library for creating virtual and AR experiences in the browser. So watch the previous videos obviously if you want to get a little bit of the story so far of what I've been doing and a bit more background information. Anyway, with all that said, primarily since the last video I've been focusing still on the map editor. I think once I get that working and in a pretty decent state, it will be half the battle, to be honest. For the rest of because the actual code for rendering the scenes, like the sort of dungeon scenes, is based on the engine code, and then I've done some modifications to obviously allow for UI interactions for the user to map the different elements on the screen. Anyway, without further ado, I'm just going to demo this thing. In terms of the interface from last time, we've got the download map here, we've got the scene here, the A-frame scene here, and this has changed a bit probably, but yeah, we just got the sidebar for opening the editor menu. It's probably seen some minor changes here. Obviously I've added a paint mode here, so you can switch between what you want to paint onto the actual scene floor, and how you want to swap out the so if you want to paint a wall, maybe you want to paint an enemy, maybe you want to paint a door. Obviously you've also got the full half height and third height as well. And then yeah, so let me just show you where it's up to now. So yeah, if I click, just take this off, I can fly around the scene. If I click on any of these floors, it creates, because I've selected full height, it creates the new wall. I don't think in the last video I'd shown that actually, so yeah, it does now paint an actual wall in the place where you click. Also, you can change the size of the wall, so if you go to open editor here and go half height, that will paint on a differently textured wall at half the height of this original wall selection, of the full height of the wall basically. This adds a bit more. Also, you can also do another go down further, so if we go to that will be even smaller. You can swap it out like that, so that's a slightly different texture as well. Smaller texture, smaller wall, and then you can so that's mostly what I've been working on actually, just getting the walls to render on correctly. I've also got a door as well, so if you go to paint mode, switch it to doors. I think this works from last time I was working on it. Yeah, and you can pick, which is not textured correctly at the minute, and also needs to be somewhat resized, but you can also add a door, so you can switch between these four elements, and sort of not the best looking map at the minute, but thinking aloud actually at the minute would probably be beneficial to allow for, yeah, I've not switched to mode, have I? Obviously it would be beneficial to allow for deletion, so you can, which is not something I've got around to yet, so you can delete each element. So if you made a mistake, maybe you want to swap that for a floor, or I ever add in another floor paint mode, which will just swap it out to the same floor instead of like the wall element that's been selected. The main thing which I'm struggling with actually a bit on this at the minute is the export. So I've fiddled around with a few different solutions to that, but basically, yeah, you want to download. Well, I want to be able to download the map. It downloads it at the minute, but because of the way it should be structured in the engine, there should be so you've got the width and the height of the array, which gets passed in to create the initial map template. Now, when it actually gets passed into the engine itself, it needs to be in a particular format, which is, say for example, the map is 25 by 25. it can't just be a sequence of zeros or ones or whatever the associated array element number is to represent a wall of any height or a door. It needs to have a line break after the width. So if it's 25 by 25, after every 25 characters, there needs to be a line break for then 25 rows basically. So every 25 items in the column, break, and then another row, break, then another row. Otherwise it just doesn't work. It doesn't work at all, as far as I've been able to test anyway. So this has actually been a lot harder than I thought it would be, basically because I'm converting an array into then stringifying it and then putting it into converting it to JSON, which comes out like currently like this. If I just open my web store. So I've had it working in the past. This is an example of a few of the other things I've done. But yeah, at the minute, like I'm trying to obviously redo it, so it just comes out. You know, like I said before, this is the problem. It comes out just as a long list, well, an array actually of. And then you can see occasionally you've got the 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, which is fine. So it's doing the replacing in the actual original array. So there you can see like 1, 1, 1, 2, 3. That's working. So like 3 is a door, 1 is a full height door, etc. But I've got a bunch of these open as well. That's just going to show. I've been trying to get a method to work for inserting the line breaks. I've tried various things. I've tried doing it directly to the array and then stringifying it. I've also cloning it and then stringifying, adding the line breaks at every 25. This is just not something I'm that familiar with, so I'm struggling a bit with that at the minute. There's a few other older ones I can probably show. Just still got a load of these open. So I think the last place where it was sort of working was, this is not that interesting I guess, but just to demonstrate, was here. But as you can see, it's inserting the line break there as a string, so that was something I did that was probably stupidly wrong. Right, correct number of elements I think, but it should be, and it shouldn't be doing it on the first item as well, but yeah, it should be. So basically what it should be doing is and then it just needs to do that, but without it being a string, it just being a number, and then doing that, which makes sense, right? But for some reason this is being annoying. Like, it's probably just a block on my part. I've just started a new job, so I'm only working on this a bit in the evenings. Probably it's that more than anything else, and also, like I said, my lack of familiarity. Like, I have some experience with manipulating arrays to do weird things and array manipulation in general, but this is just not something I've had to do before, so it's sort of like something I'm having to learn how to do. And I thought this would be fairly simple, but it's probably one of those where there's like several different. So this is what it should be doing is that, except without passing the 0 or whatever the element is as a 0, should be passing it, and then just inserting a line break into what will eventually be JSON. So there's probably an easy solution to this. If anyone knows the solution to it, let me know, because basically as soon as that works, also the other problem I was having as well was, so I could get it to work with the line breaks, but the actual map elements, so the map itself, so if you look on the display, like if I drew all the way around here, in theory what that should do is create a square or a rectangle in this case, all around. So one at the top, one all the way down the sides, one on the bottom. That's what you'd expect it to do. But what it actually does, and this may be something to do with how I'm actually manipulating the array, the source array, the map template array, to swap the different types of elements out. What it actually does is it creates it basically in the top quarter of the, so if you had a 25 by 25, or I don't know, for argument's sake, it's easier, 50 by 50, and it would take up, that shape would be present, but it would be in the top left hand corner, which is not what I want. I want it so that if it's a 50 by 50, you've got 50 ones there at the top, 50 at the bottom, and on each corresponding side. So basically trying to figure that out at the minute, and also just working on the general UI functions. Texture select doesn't actually do anything at the minute. It would be useful to be able to apply custom textures to different heights. Might implement that, to be honest. It wouldn't be that much harder, even if I just abstract it. I could have 0 and 1. So you could have 2 different, I don't know, for argument's sake, if you wanted 4, I mean, this would be a convoluted and sort of stupid way of doing it, but I could create for each, like, so there's only 3 wall types, right? And then you could have 4 custom textures, and then I could create 12 different. So basically, the first 12 numbers would be, but then that doesn't make much sense. So I'd rather have it so that I can. But I could do something like that, basically, where you got. Sorry, that doesn't make much sense of what way I was explaining that. So I could have 12 different numbers which represent 0 to 4 for the full height, 2 to 4. Sorry, I'm good at maths, honestly. 5 to 8 for the half height, and then I just assign a different texture based on that. That seems stupid. It's not really the most clever method, but again, I don't want to get. I'm working on creating a quick prototype for this, and then if I have to go back and iterate a few things, I'm quite happy to. This is just a side project for me. It's nothing. I'm not staking my entire life on this thing. Enemies I've not moved on to yet, but I've just created it so that that disappears and goes. It doesn't do anything at the minute. And I've only got 4 assigned enemy slots. Again, I'll have to think about the minimum, or not the minimum, but the standard for how many multiples of enemies I'd allow. I mean, this can go up to any number, really. It doesn't have to. Maybe 10, or maybe I just add a function so that. Again, probably what I need to do is create a general map config as well, so that you've got how many enemies do you want in this map, like the max number, and then you'd have the dynamically created enemy list based on that, and then you could paint on. This doesn't work yet, but you could select different enemies based on that. One thing that is good actually is that I've got enemy mode selected, and if I click, it's not doing anything, which is also because I've not created it yet. But yeah, if I go back to wall, it will paint. So the paint mode switcher works, which is good. Like I said, this works on the most basic level. So you can actually sort of construct basic sort of environments. You know, like I said, I'm just using some generic textures that don't even particularly make sense in a minute, but it's more just getting the fundamentals of that set up at the minute, really, to be honest. There's nothing really fancy going on with the lighting. It's just like standard ambient lighting. I could maybe add in some features to customize that, which would then be somehow exported out in the download map config, and probably eventually I'm going to have to create a way of having the map itself, the map data itself, which is just the property of it's just data within the JSON, in the JSON object, and then also some like I said, like number of wall texture, whatever, like basically configuration for it, because at the minute it just spits out the pure map data and nothing else. But that's, again, it's going to involve probably more coding for that bit. I'll quickly show some of the code. It's quite messy at the minute, to be honest, and then I'll just wrap this video up, I think, for this devlog. So if I go to map editor, I've also got a UI editor now, which is just basically, it's just event listens for listening for events and then calling specific functions. I'm using FileSaver.js just for the saving, just because it saves on having to write a bunch of custom code for that, and it just works, which is good, it's useful. So what was I going to show? It has become quite increasingly really prototypes. I'm just trying to get stuff working at the minute, so This currently is about 300 lines. I've started adding a lot more functions. Some of these could probably be broken up into utility functions. Like we've got generic things like just functions that can be broken out into a separate JS file. Maybe it'd be worth doing that at a later point as well, because at the minute I'm just writing, you know, sort of like I'm not redoing the whole function for many things, but like there's becoming more of these like sub functions, if you know what I mean, which is fine. It doesn't have to be too concise. And conciseness, I'm not aiming. This is for the, like I said, for the map editor part of things. But what was going to show the new line. So this is what I'm struggling with at the minute. As you can see, like I've gone through several iterations of this. Actually, I can probably. I'm just trying to. The last place I left this out, which is not even working at all. I'm passing it the array. I want to add the lines to the break length, which is the map template size, basically like 25 or 50 or whatever. Just checking there's something in the array, so checking it has a length. Running the for loop. If the index is divisible by break length, then it equals 0. So if there's no remainder, it's modulus, that symbol. Essentially, it just means if that number can divide into that number and the remainder is 0, then at the minute just console logs. But I was trying a splice method before, and I tried a few other things too. I might even be able to look into the history of it, which is for the other day. So you'll see here that I've tried quite a few things with regards to that. Just scroll down, I should be able to see some of it. This is all probably a bit boring now. Sorry, but I'm just trying to find when I was trying to do it. Yeah, so this is, like here I was trying to do a slice and a join. There's another method I tried, but basically that's the main thing I'm struggling with at the minute. I don't want to ramble on too long. This is already a 70-minute video. Oh my god. In terms of the actual engine code, it's just the same. I'll just show it anyway, just because I can't remember when I last showed it, but essentially it's loading one of these test maps I did a while ago, so I'm not sure exactly what state it'll be in, but yeah, there we go. So this is actually a test map I created in the map editor. Doesn't look too bad, but like I said, it was an older version, so I think there was some, but that is actually something that's come from the map editor with the associated environment component, an older version, mind you, so there's only one type of wall here, but that's showing that it does import in. I just need to do all the bits in between at the minute, basically. But yeah, it's starting to get into some more of the nitty-gritty detail bit, which is always where it can either fall or rise. But I'm quite happy with how this is progressing. I'm going to continue to work on it in the evenings when I can, on the weekends, and yeah, it should be quite an interesting thing once it's done, I guess. Anyway, I'll leave the video there. I've been Noah Nerd in a bit.